The child's voice broke the heavy silence of the ranch house. "Daddy, is she dying?" Little Clara's eyes, wide and filled with worry, stared at the pale, trembling woman lying on the floorboards near the hearth. Her wrists were raw and red where the iron chains had dug into her skin. Her hair, once a dark cascade, was matted with dirt and sweat, clinging to her hollow cheeks. She looked less like a person and more like a shadow clinging to its last breath. Ethan Cole, a man known across the county as a hard rancher but a good father, crouched down and checked the woman's pulse. It was weak, like a whisper on the edge of silence, but it was there. His jaw tightened as he saw the chains that had been cruelly locked around her ankles and wrists. Whoever had brought her here, whoever had sold her, used her, discarded her like a broken tool, had not treated her as human. And that burned in him with a fury he couldn't put into words. "She's not dying," Ethan said, his voice steady but heavy with something Clara had never heard before. "Not if I can help it." He lifted the frail woman into his arms, careful of the chains that clinked and cut. Clara followed close, her little hands clutching her father's sleeve. "She's so thin, Daddy," she whispered. "She looks like she hasn't eaten for days." "She probably hasn't," Ethan muttered. He laid the woman gently on the bed in the spare room, the same one his late wife once filled with warmth and laughter. For years now, that room had stood empty, carrying only memories and silence. As he pulled the blanket over the stranger, he felt the past collide with the present. How strange that this woman, nameless and broken, should end up here, under his roof. That night, Ethan sat by her side. He fed her broth by the spoonful, coaxing her to take in what little her body could manage. Sometimes she coughed, sometimes she turned away, but slowly, she swallowed. Clara brought water, whispering softly, as though her voice itself might hold the woman here in the world. "Don't leave us. Please don't leave, miss." The days stretched, and life on the ranch demanded attention. Cattle needed tending, fences needed mending, but Ethan never let the woman out of his sight for long. He cut the chains with his own tools, his hands trembling with quiet rage as the metal fell away. Her skin bore deep bruises where they had been, marks of her captivity. When she finally woke fully, her eyes darted around the room, wild and afraid, like an animal that expected another blow. "You're safe," Ethan said firmly, crouching so his gaze met hers. "No one here will hurt you." She tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. He handed her water, and she drank in desperate gulps until her body shook. Clara sat beside her, holding her hand with a gentleness beyond her years. "We'll take care of you," she whispered. It was on the third day she spoke her first words. Her voice was hoarse, broken, as if unused for years. Why did you keep me alive?" Ethan stared at her, struck by the question. "Because you're human," he said. "Because no one deserves to be treated the way you've been." Her eyes filled with tears she seemed too tired to shed. I don't even have a name anymore." Ethan hesitated, then turned to Clara, who smiled softly and whispered, "Then we'll give you one." The woman's lips trembled. That night, Ethan searched through the old chest his wife had kept. Inside lay a simple cotton dress, clean and folded, never worn after her passing. With careful hands, he brought it to the woman. "This is yours now. You deserve clothes, not chains." She touched the fabric as though it were something holy. When she wore it the next morning, standing timidly in the kitchen doorway, Clara clapped her hands. "She looks like a princess, Daddy." The woman flushed, ducking her head. "No, not a princess." Her voice still shook. "Then who are you?" Ethan asked gently. The pause stretched, the silence holding years of pain. Finally, she whispered, "Anna." It wasn't her birth name. Ethan could tell by the way she hesitated. But it was a name she chose, and that mattered. He nodded. "Anna, then." And so Anna began her second life. The ranch became her world. At first, she moved carefully, as if each step might be punished. But slowly, the fear eased. Clara took her hand everywhere, teaching her to feed the chickens, leading her to the barn, showing her how to braid her doll's hair. And Ethan, though always busy, found himself watching Anna more than he expected. She was quiet, almost too quiet, but when she smiled, rare as it was, it lit the dimmest corners of the house. Still, shadows lingered in her eyes. At night, Ethan would hear her wake with a cry, clutching the sheets as though invisible chains pulled her back into nightmares. He never pressed her for details, but one evening, as the fire burned low, she confessed in a whisper, "They sold me when I was young. Passed me from hand to hand like cattle. I stopped counting the years. I stopped being me." Ethan's hands curled into fists. But he only said, "That ends now. You're not theirs anymore." She looked at him, disbelief flickering into something softer. "And if I don't know how to be anyone anymore, then we'll figure it out together," he replied. Seasons changed. Anna gained strength, color returning to her cheeks. She laughed sometimes, small, uncertain bursts that made Clara giggle and Ethan's chest ache in ways he didn't want to name. She learned to ride a horse, though she trembled the first time, her hands white-knuckled on the reins. Ethan rode beside her, steady and patient, guiding her through fear until she felt the wind on her face and cried, not from terror, but freedom. But the past has a way of clawing back. One autumn morning, riders came to the ranch, men rough and mean, their eyes sharp as knives. Ethan recognized them instantly. Traders, the kind who dealt in misery. They claimed Anna was theirs, property that had escaped. Clara clung to her father's leg, terror in her eyes. Anna stood frozen on the porch, her body trembling as the men pointed to her. "She belongs to us." Ethan stepped forward, his voice like thunder. "She belongs to no one. Not anymore." The men sneered, reaching for their weapons. But Ethan was ready. He stood tall, rifle steady, his fury barely contained. "You'll leave this land. If you come back, you won't walk away." For a tense moment, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the men cursed, spat in the dirt, and rode off, their threat lingering like a storm on the horizon. Anna collapsed onto the porch, her hands covering her face. "They'll come back," she whispered. "They'll never let me be free." Ethan knelt before her, lifting her chin so she looked at him. "Let them try. They'll find a man ready to fight for you. You hear me? You're not alone anymore." Tears spilled down her cheeks. And for the first time, she let herself believe him. Years later, Clara would tell the story often. How a woman in chains came to their ranch, broken and nameless. How her father gave her not just food and shelter, but a dress, a name, and the chance to start again. And how that woman became family, not because of blood, but because of love. And though Anna never forgot the darkness she came from, she built a new life in the light. She learned to laugh freely, to love deeply, to see herself not as a possession but as a person. She carried scars, yes, but they became part of a story of survival, not defeat. Every time she looked at Clara, she saw hope. Every time she looked at Ethan, she saw the man who had pulled her from the edge of death and given her more than a second life. He had given her the chance to truly live. And so, the question that once trembled from a child's lips, "Daddy, is she dying?" was answered in the most beautiful way. No, she was not dying. She was finally alive.